Hello class. Here in Module 2, we have been looking at the history and impact of the nonprofit sector, and I've really enjoyed the discussion this week. Each of you briefly wrote about a nonprofit organization that interests you, and we saw just how varied these organizations can be. This variation is what makes the nonprofit sector both unique and complex, and as we are reading this in our text, the history of how we got these types of organizations have roots in the traditions of charity, philanthropy, and volunteerism. As an aside, Modules 2 and 3 of our class are best seen together as a whole, and in Module 2, our focus is on the general structure, history, and impact, whereas next week we'll look deeper into the nature of that impact. The book chapter does a wonderful job outlining what is meant by what we term the nonprofit sector, and that the modern form by which we generally think about it is really a recent invention since the 1970s. According to the Internal Revenue Service and data from the Urban Institute, in 2013 there were more than 1.4 million nonprofit organizations in the United States, with most what are considered small nonprofits, those who have an annual expense of less than $500,000. On the flip side, only 4% of nonprofits had annual expenses of over $10 million. The sector contributed over $900 billion to the United States economy, and 1 in 4 adults in the U.S. volunteered at some point with an organization in 2014. Now, while these are impressive statistics, take this all back down to some of our discussion on the mission of these organizations. Ultimately, it is about a changed life, or a changed social, economic, or even physical condition. Nonprofits are about people, and I believe they do something that taps into our sense of social conscience, however that may play out. Where that plays out and how is part of what we have looked at in this module. How we categorize or organize the vastness of the sector depends on a few things. First is the matter of what we call nonprofit organizations. That is, what is non about nonprofit? One common misconception is that they cannot make profit, which is actually not correct. They can, in fact, make profit, and many do. It is just that profit, technically the revenue minus the expenses, are redistributed into the organization and not towards stakeholders. Next is categorizing them, and we looked at a couple ways to think about them. One was through a classification system from the IRS and understanding some of the tax-exempt implications, while the other was through the National Taxonomy of Exempt Entities and classifying them through what they did. You could think of the IRS classification system more geared toward governance and finance, whereas the NTEE classification system is more about mission and motive. In Module 3, we'll go deeper into some of the philosophy behind these missions and motives. We'll look at these distinctions and how this impacts an organization's structure. As we go deeper, we'll also explore the nuances of these distinctions and this concept of nonprofit theory. What is public? What is private? What is common? What makes a nonprofit organization valuable for the economic and social vitality of a society? These and other fun philosophical questions will be discussed. For now, just knowing that there are complexities and diversity in the sector hopefully give you a bigger appreciation for it. I like the example given in the text of the hypothetical walk down the street, and realizing that nonprofits exist just about everywhere and do just about everything. How we describe that? Well, that's the intriguing part. One colleague of mine, who is an executive director at a nonprofit, has a humorous way of trying to describe this sector and came up with some creative ideas. First was the impact sector. Kind of violent, like car crashes. Makes me think of crushing garbage into compact cubes. Another was the social sector? Kind of wishy-washy. That sounds like all we do is go to parties. What about the social impact sector? It's kind of violent, yet wishy-washy. It sounds like all we do is go to parties that involve crushing garbage into compact cubes. Here's one: the mandate-driven or mission-driven sector. I can't imagine some kid saying, "When I grow up, I'm going to work for a mandate-driven organization." Probably the best descriptor was this: the we run clinics, hospitals, schools, and save lives with what you spend on bottled water sector. I think that last one captures it. Another way to say it is that nonprofits change the world with the world change. Well, that's all for now, and as I always say, don't hesitate to contact me anytime with questions or concerns. Finish up any posts through the weekend, and I will see you online.